LA is such a great city, but there's almost too many things to do. Plus, it's super spread out. It can feel overwhelming, but we get it, and we're here to help. So what would an LA insider tell you to do? What are some great activities that are free or that most people miss? We'll answer that with his top 10 insider activities list. Visiting some of LA's most iconic spots, some beaches, but also some things that most people don't know about, like awesome beach drives, the best area for indie clothing, hikes, great stops for design nuts, and stay to the end because I'll unveil my number one most fun LA activity that's totally free. Okay, let's go. Griffith Observatory is one of the most iconic LA buildings and worth a trip to get some of the best views in LA, to check out the architecture, to see the museum, or just take a hike. Let's break it down. At 5 times the size of New York Central Park, there's tons of hiking to do here. You can knock out 2 photo ops in one day by starting a hike under the Hollywood sign, and then walking up from there. If you're into architecture, it's worth a trip up here just to see the outside of the building. It's a mishmash of Art Deco design with some Roman temple themes thrown in. You've seen it in tons of movies, including Rebel Without a Cause. The building houses an astronomy museum if you want to check that out. And here's a pro tip. Parking's free in the mornings, and it's a great place to catch an LA sunrise for all you early birds out there. Besides Griffith Park, one of the things I love about LA is you can take great hikes not far from the city. Probably the best one that's close to the city, in this case Hollywood, is the Runyon Canyon Walk. There's a 3-mile loop that you can do, and I'd say is moderate intensity. We've put links on where to park and a trail map below. But our advice is not to hang out in Hollywood itself. It's not the best part of town. But if you do the hike, you're close to the Capitol Records building that resembles a stack of old-time vinyl 45s. Worth a drive-by, and who doesn't need another Instagram moment? Keep driving left to hit West Hollywood. If you do want to be in this part of town, then we'd recommend the Charlie Hotel that takes you back to 1920s Hollywood. Only a block from the Charlie is the Schindler House. I can't do justice to this place on video, and it may not look super impressive by today's standards, but come on, this place was built in 1922, before modern architecture was much of a thing. It's better in person, and I think it's super cool. From here, it's a 5-minute walk to West Hollywood. It's not my favorite part of town, but there are tons of shops, restaurants, and bars to choose from. When I think of the golden years of Hollywood, I think of mid-century homes with great pools and views. In LA, many of these iconic homes are open to the public. Here are some of the best ones that you can visit. And sorry, this is the only part of the video that's not organized by area. These places are scattered around. Remember Charles and Ray Eames? Well, they invented these and so much more. And you can visit their house and it's super cool. The Stahl House is in the Hollywood Hills, and you've seen this mid-century masterpiece in over 50 movies. I love the architecture and the view. It's open to the public, but book early. If you still need that design fix, you can also visit Richard Neutra's VDL House, another mid-century gem and one of my favorite homes in LA. You want to book early here too. Still not enough design? Don't worry. Later in the video, we'll show you how to tour some incredible Beverly Hills architecture. If this video is helpful to you, please like and share it, and we'd love it if you subscribe so you can see all the great destinations we're going to be covering. Thanks. Okay, let's get back on track here. Around the corner from West Hollywood is the La Brea area, which might win the Swank Award for the most central/convenient area in LA for folks who want to see it all. Plus, there's lots of great things to do right in the neighborhood. There's the Peterson Auto Museum, the Academy of Motion Pictures, and LACMA. I can't figure out if I love or hate the architecture of the Peterson, but it's unique for sure. and maybe it's supposed to reflect the modernity of the automobile. Yeah, that's some bull. This is where Oscar lives. And right next door is the world-famous LA County Museum of Modern Art, aka LACMA. Definitely worth a visit. You could easily spend a whole day here. The architecture of the building itself is really interesting. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of downtown LA, but it definitely has some cool Art Deco buildings and some nice new architecture. You could walk over to the iconic LA County Courthouse. There's a nice park in front. My go-to downtown would be the amazing museums. The Museum of Contemporary Art, aka MoCA, has this cool mural on the outside and this cool art on the inside. Across the street is another excellent museum, the Broad. One of my LA friends told me I was pronouncing it wrong. I was calling it the Broad. And next door to the Broad is the Walt Disney Theater that's home to the LA Philharmonic. If you're already downtown, then you're only 5 minutes from the Arts District, a fun and vibrant neighborhood in a formerly industrial part of LA. My favorite space is the Hauser and Worth Gallery, a former flour mill that's now a communal space with massive art galleries, halls for paintings, and for wonderful sculptures. There's also a restaurant on site and a gift shop. The architecture is great, and so is the art. The Arts District has tons of trendy cafes and restaurants, a brewery, and art galleries to check out. It's a fun outing. Okay, grab your credit cards and let's go shopping in the hip and happening neighborhood of Abbot Kinney. If you're into cool, indie brands, then skip Beverly Hills and West Hollywood and head here instead. It's just a few blocks east of Venice Beach. This place is chock-a-block full of independent clothing and homeware stores and lots of cool cafes and restaurants. Then head downtown to Venice Beach, but take a detour and walk along the canals. It's definitely not as crowded as the real Venice. Then turn right and head over to Santa Monica via the beach. There really is a nice walking/biking path on the beach, great for exercise and people watching. Personally, I'd skip Santa Monica Pier. It's pretty touristy, but if you've got small kids, maybe they'd like it. Fun fact, this is where Route 66 ends. Ooh, another chance for an Instagram moment. You could do a day at the beach, but for some reason, this doesn't look that relaxing to me. Maybe it's because all the vegetation's been stripped away. But at a minimum, you can grab a selfie next to one of these iconic California lifeguard stands. "20 minutes down the coast from Santa Monica is Malibu. The short drive from LA is fun. It felt very Americana, whatever that means. There are remnants of the golden age of 50s and 60s surfing culture along the way, and you have the Pacific Ocean next to you for almost the whole drive. There are some not so pretty parts of the drive. It always looks better in the movies, but it was still fun. So what is there to do in Malibu anyway, you ask? Well, you could surf. You could shop. But I'd say the town of Malibu isn't super charming, so I'd limit my walking to the Malibu Pier. It's a bit touristy for my taste, but it still has some charms. I decided to head up the coast about 15 miles. The drive's really nice, and there are quite a few beaches to choose from for walks, or the sunsets that you won't get in Malibu because Malibu's east-facing. Head back to town and stop in Westwood Village, a great place to base yourself that's central to a lot of LA activities and is close to some great museums and UCLA. There are lots of casual restaurants, cafes, and shops to choose from. And right around the corner is the Hammer Museum, one of LA's best modern and alternative art venues. The main UCLA campus is a 5-minute drive away through a nice residential neighborhood. The UCLA campus is a lot prettier than I ever imagined. I don't know, for some reason I assumed it would be more urban. If you want to go just a bit further, the Getty Museum's right up the road and is one of my favorite spots in LA. It's a great art museum in its own right, but there's something about this 80s architecture that I love. And the views are good too. I have to admit, my first time in LA, I wanted to see Beverly Hills, so I can't blame you if you want to check it out. It's probably worth a look-see. But unless you want to shop like Pretty Woman, you might get bored after a few minutes, or you might start to get annoyed with all the shoppers showing off their glam designer shopping bags. But when you do get bored shopping, or run out of money, here's an alternative. Drive up to the residential part of Beverly Hills, the hilly parts that are only 5 minutes from downtown Beverly Hills. As you make your way from the flat parts, you'll drive through a neighborhood that looks pretty fancy. Until you start heading up the hill, that is. And then fancy takes on a whole new meaning. There's so much to gawk at. There's a PDF on our website, also includes a route map for this outing. There's over-the-top Jed Clampett type estates. Then there's charming Spanish and colonial homes from the 20s and 30s, some with some pretty amazing views. And then there's tons of cutting-edge modern architecture to admire too, and it's all free. I hope this video was helpful. Have a great time in LA, and I'll see you in the next video.